Well, thank you again for having us on the webinar, and all those that have tuned in. We trust you'll be able to absorb some great tips and ideas. So we have a slideshow put together, and hopefully I can learn how to navigate that while we're doing the commentaries. So let's get right into it. First of all, we'll do the share, and we're going right here and go to our slideshow. So, and we'll hide this little guy. So again, it's collaboration, National Pro Clean and Swept to help you with your quotes and proposals. The title is How to Calculate Accurate Quotes for Your Janitorial Services. And we will be talking about production rates considerably. So to answer your question about, how long does it take to clean an account and why is that so challenging? Primarily because each building has unique cleaning demands. So when the cleaning demands increase, then the cleaning productivity decreases. That's a general rule that you can't get around. So we've named those different challenges cleaning variables, and they're there in every type of building. One of them would be different cleaning frequencies, even in the same building. Another one would be the size, meaning that generally the more efficiencies and momentum you gain while you're going through the building. There can be specific cleaning demands at each customer, idiosyncrasies and things that they want done specifically. So that can vary from account to account. High workstation density is a major factor. That's how many people are making a mess in the building every day. And you can simply ask the prospect how many employees they have, divide that into the square footage, and that gives you how many square feet each was in the building. Usually around 250 square feet is sort of the norm. Things that are higher, you're looking at attorneys' offices, and when you get down to telemarketing operations, you might be down to 100 square feet per person, and certainly that affects your production rate. You have more trash cans to empty, more trips to the restroom, and all the things that result from having more folks in the building. And sometimes you have obstacles to work around. You have to move furniture and dust mop and wet mop underneath it. Then the other thing can be the cleaning standard work, the things that they want handled, and also their expectation levels. And we'll talk about that in a minute. The building layout can affect your production rates, whether there's a maze you have to go through or whether it's quite open and easy to navigate. And then a good question is it cleaned nightly? Because if it's not, then you may experience as much as a 20% increase in your labor rate when you've skipped a night or two and didn't clean it and come in. And I can assure you they're going to leave everything for the janitorial crew. Then you want to check out the usage and traffic going through the building. That makes a difference. Heavy soil means that the cleaning demands are going to be heavier and your labor costs are going to be more. Then there's also the option to use high-speed equipment where, in fact, if you have a larger building where more efficient equipment will fit, then you, of course, improve your production rate. And some additional factors include in your overall pricing, whether you might need an operations manager or a working supervisor or quality control inspector, or maybe your staff hasn't been fully trained and they're not completely experienced and they're running a little slower than other staffs. So as you can see, Toby, there are many difficulty factors or variables that affect the cleaning production rates. Back to you, Toby.
Yeah, no, that's great, Gary. So when you're looking at production rates, is it important to analyze and locate reasons for the differences in those rates as you go from one account to the next?
Absolutely. Contractors who track the production rate for each and every account, they're in a better position to manage the workloading and be in control of their own profits. And that's because historical records are a fair predictor of the future bids. For those that have never tracked production rates, you simply take the nightly cleaning labor for the janitorial tasks only. You average that for the whole month, find out what the average nightly labor is, divide that into the net cleanable. So in this example, took a building that was 10,000 square feet, day in, day in out. If it took 3 hours to clean it, then the production rate was 3,333 square feet cleaned per hour. And you should always track your production rate for every building. It's just extremely important. So that's the answer there. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's good. Do I understand you've quantified a sliding scale for determining your cleaning production rates?
Yes, I had an advantage of having cleaned hundreds and actually thousands of accounts when you include carpet and floor care over the years. And I began studying the ISSA cleaning times in 1974. It was actually a one-page document, as I recall. And then in 2001, I began studying BSCAI, BOMA, APA cleaning times, and my own production rates. And one of the challenging things in using production rates are all the variables that can go into that formula. So when I released JanBid in around 2007, I developed a sliding scale that quantifies and weighs the critical cleaning variables to project a production rate specific for each building. So when these 7 variables regarding janitorial work are totaled up, then the score looks like a scale from 0 to 100, and that would be how easy or how difficult the building will to clean, take to clean. So over the years, this scoring system has proven highly accurate. Of course, you could develop your own, but we have one ready to go.
That's awesome. So Gary, not very often, but I've heard from a couple of people who have talked about their production rate being close to 6,000 square feet per hour. I mean, how is that possible?
Well, we built into JanBid an option to offer a partial clean instead of a deep clean or a complete clean. And the partial clean, you could even actually prepare 2 proposals, one for a complete clean every night and one for adding in a partial. Even some of the larger buildings may have 4 partial cleans, and then on the weekend they do the complete clean. So our definition of a partial clean would be to empty the trash, clean the restrooms, only dust and spray and wipe the heavy soil that's noticeable, and then spot vacuum and mop the floors in the traffic lanes only. So it is a process that doesn't fit everyone, but it can come in when the customer might have a tight budget. And so what JanBid does is it instantly reduces your labor costs, and this is passed on to the customer. So we have the specifications that in this case, if you offer partial cleaning, at least you're being transparent and you're providing an integrity about what the actual frequencies are going to be. And that can be a major sales point when you're talking with the prospect.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Gary. For those on the call who are somewhat new to the industry, integrity is a big challenge for a lot of customers. So if you can make sure you're forthcoming in that regard, it certainly bodes well for any sales approach you have. As we start to talk about the customer, Gary, how do you tell, in your experience, how do you identify or tell if a client is going to be extra particular in terms of what they want you to do? Is there some kind of guiding principles you've seen or kind of work towards there?
Sure. In my contractor training and certification program, I have an article about assessing customer expectations. So in other words, if a manager is sort of excessive compulsive or a type A personality, then they may be a little picky about the thoroughness of the work. And perhaps rightly so, because they want to protect the health and the well-being of their own employees. So here I've listed 5 areas that will help you to determine the expectations and maybe even unreasonable expectations that a prospect might have. So number 1, if the prospect shares a copy of the current scope of work, and it includes numerous detailed tasks such as, cleaning chair legs and Venetian blinds and door kick plates and baseboards and washing walls, and the list goes on. It's pretty certain that they have high expectations, and many of those added tasks must be added to the price. So number two would be during the walkthrough, if the prospect focuses on, you might say, a white glove inspection, it's almost certain that they're going to be extra particular, and they may even stress zero tolerance when they're doing with you a quality control inspection. So be aware of that. Number three, our JanBid building survey contains 10 questions that are valuable to ask, and one of the questions is if there are things that they would like to see improved. And of course, you can word that different ways to fit your personality, but what you're looking for is hopefully a dissatisfaction with their current service. You see, because here's a key: until you help work to get the incumbent contractor fired, you can't be hired. And also, you want to find out if there's a possibility that the prospect is trying to drive down the pricing to the lowest bidder, and then they turn around and complain about poor quality. So, if that's going to be the case, it may not be a win-win relationship. Number four, if you discuss with them and they tell you about how long they think the job takes, and this doesn't always come up. Sometimes if you ask them if they have a budget in mind of what they like to spend, or if they would like to share how long it takes, sometimes they just say, no, you tell me what it'll take you. Or they may say, that's my business and not yours. So if they share some time, how long it takes, it might reflect the actual labor, or it might reflect what they would like to see. You never know. So if you can estimate the current productivity by dividing the hours that they give you into the net cleanable, then you can see what the production rate is. And another question is you want to kind of probe, is the current contractor employing efficient equipment? An example might be a 16-inch floor tool on a backpack, or space vac, or ride-on for a number of large hauls. And number five, determine if the prospect is passionately focused on conformance to the contract. And they want to know about all the ways that you'll guarantee performance. In other words, that all aspects on the task list are going to be performed thoroughly and as specified. And this is where SWEPT will come in and have many ideas on improving communication systems and helping ensure that all the cleaning tasks are thoroughly completed. Back to you, Toby.
There, it's unmuted myself. Yeah, so Gary, just to take us off track for just a second, Vanessa asked a question, wondering if there's any chance you could just go back a couple of slides for us, just for a moment. Vanessa wanted to see your production rate calculation again. So if you could just pull that up for just a moment so she can get a check at that. So Vanessa, that was the question you'd asked to see again. So we'll give you just a second to jot that down. So Gary, one of the other questions that I had in here, as we talk about particular clients, is what can you do to adjust the price when you are dealing with one of these individuals that you just spoke about? Like, how do you address that when you're working with someone who is that A-type personality?
Sure. And they can be difficult to deal with, but on the other hand, a good manager wants to make sure that there's contract conformance. I mean, that's what they're paying for. And a lot of times you'll land a contract simply because the quality is not there. The promises are not being kept. I use this saying sometimes in my consulting when I help contractors that will promise the moon and deliver much less, and that, they make a lot of promises to first land a contract. Sometimes bidding it too low, knowing that it really can't be done for the amount of labor that they're projecting. And so in a way, this becomes, more of smoke and mirrors and maybe a little bit of deception on what they're actually going to provide for the amount of labor that they budgeted. So the important thing about adjusting your price for all of the variables and when you know that you have a customer that's going to be extremely particular and picky. And JanBid, I've drilled down to three things that you can use. First of all, I mentioned about speccing out a partial clean versus a complete clean. And what JanBid does is it reduces your labor by 25% on a partial. You do have to have an understanding with the prospect. If they go with this bid, it's because it's a price issue, and at least you're being transparent about what you're going to provide. Other people may say, oh yeah, we do a complete clean every night, knowing that they've underbidded and don't have a budget complete clean. So they look to cut corners, and sometimes they really push their crews to the max, and then the crews get worn out from working hard and doing things more than what they thought they had to do. So it's not a good relationship in that manner. But the other thing is that you can adjust the cleaning variable score. So in other words, in our program, we come up with 7 factors, and you score them like 1 to 30, 1 to 10, 1 to 3, total that up, and it gives you a production rate. However, after you've been in the building, you can always tweak that. In fact, you really should. And at this time, you could, bump it up or down 10 or 20 or 30%. And you want to bump it up for extremely detailed work that will be required. And then the other method would be to use an extras list to add specific times for extra cleaning that's above the nightly standard janitorial clean. And of course, if they accept a partial clean, you have to have an understanding with your new account that if you provide a partial clean one given night, you would hope that your phone would not ring the next morning that they had just performed a white glove inspection and wondered why every spot underneath the desk hadn't been removed, or behind doors and things like that. So you kind of have to educate the customer as well. So it's always best to use a sliding scale for everything that you do. We built that into our program along with a list of many extras that can be included. And that way it allows you to drill down and develop greater accuracy. Years ago, we just kind of went with our intuition and picked a number and hoped it was right. But when you quantify all the variables in a building and look at the things that go into your production rate, it allows you to really fine tune it and also compare it with other buildings where you have the production rate, and you've already studied those buildings to determine, why does this particular building take longer to clean, or why is it faster? See, so you should know that for every one of your buildings. So again, it's always best to use a sliding scale. In fact, we have a difficulty factor or cleaning variable for carpet and floor care. So you rate 8 points and total it up and divide by 2, and that gives you your price per square foot. So you can do that on the job and quote your carpet and floor care. So that way, every job is priced according to the required labor and chemical that you believe will be required for that job. Okay.
Yeah, okay. So Gary, we have a couple of quick questions here for you as well. So I've got, someone was asking, what's the best, fastest way to get net or cleanable square footage?
Well, you can, some people go into such detail where they want to subtract out utility, electrical closets and things like that. I don't believe that's necessary, but what is necessary is to find out if there are rooms that you do not clean. And so, and I don't subtract the thickness of walls, because when you think about it, if there's a wall and the wall is 8 inches in depth, you have to slow down at that wall and vacuum the baseboard. If that wall wasn't there, you'd clean much faster. So certainly it wouldn't be to your advantage to try to take out wall space and things like that. It's really not necessary. So you just measure the length and width. In our program, we separate it from carpet, floor, and restrooms. They all clean at different times. When I say floor, separate that into BCT that you might strip and refinish versus marble and wood and laminate that you wouldn't normally have an ongoing floor care program for. But basically, subtract out areas that you do not clean. Now, in larger leased buildings where you have a property manager, it's good to measure those areas, because often they'll come back and say, hey, Gary, on the 5th of next month, we have that rented, and we want you to include that in the price. In our program, you already have the price per square foot, so you can just say, well, that section you're adding is 8,000 square feet, and we have it priced at 14 cents a square foot or whatever. And it's not really wise to bid by the square foot until you get up into $250,000, $500,000 square feet, because those buildings tend to be 5 day a week, and they tend to be similar. But when you're comparing medical clinics with daycares and churches and different facilities that are not clean 5 days a week, and some of them clean 6 and some of them clean 7, then your price per square foot kind of goes out the window. So the price per square foot is just a basic comparison on those that are clean 5 days a week. But don't worry about going into too much detail on measuring every inch, but do, as I mentioned, do pull out areas that are not being cleaned at all at the present time. There you'll arrive at your net cleanable.
Okay, great. Gary, what I'm going to do, there's 2 other questions we've got here. So I figure maybe what we'll do is we'll take out of the slide presentation and go back to the video here so you can actually answer these and people can see your smiling face there. So let me just see if I can get us back to, how do I get Gary onto here? Yeah. Oh, so Gary, you're going to have to just, are you done? Is that all the slides you've got there, I think?
No, I actually have one or two more, and then I'm finished. So maybe we'll finish that, and then we'll go to Q&A. Would that be all right?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay, this is a great thing about live webinars, huh? It gets exciting, sure. When it comes to winning the bid, impression points are real important. And I'm asked this question a lot. I've turned in a lot of bids. I had a guy email me this morning. He's supposed to be on the webinar. He'd bought our program, and he, wasn't winning his fair share. I had another guy call me a couple weeks ago, and he had bought our training program package, our contractor training certification program, the same day he signed up for your program, and he used them both together. And I was pleasantly surprised that he said he was closing 75% of his proposals. Now, that's very exceptional. I've done that before myself, but in today's market, normally if you close 1 out of 3, you're a happy camper. But the impression points, there's many factors like your appearance, the thoroughness with which you conduct the survey, the literature that you have, your marketing flyers, and we have a package with 48 marketing flyers, the completeness of your proposal, your overall competency, and competitive pricing and good references. Then there are things like being able to show that you have an operations manual, and that includes how to vet and train new employees, or an up-to-date procedure for things like eliminating cross-contamination, quality control inspections, building safety and security, and the list goes on. So there are 5 things that I inserted just this morning into slides that are important in improving your closing average. Number 1 is you have to provide a value proposition. So in other words, it's not all about you see, it's all about them. And number 2, then you need a thorough needs analysis. You see, this is a mistake many contractors make, is tied in with number 3. They really don't try to inspect the building and discover cleaning deficiencies. And many times you'll find deficiencies that the prospect never thought of and hadn't seen, and it wasn't on their mind. And you want to bring this out, out in a very diplomatic manner, because if you were doing a building survey with an owner of a building, and you say, boy, your janitorial crew's kind of doing a crummy job. Look at these dirty drinking fountains. And the owner might say, oh, you don't like the way my wife and son clean? You see, you just shot yourself in the foot. So you have to use some diplomacy. And then once you spot the cleaning deficiencies, you're able to share the cause, the cure, and the prevention. And you may even want to take some notes on this. What that does, it puts you in a position of being a cleaning consultant. You're not just another commodity of selling labor to send a crew in to clean a building, but you've studied the diagnostics and the troubleshooting skills we have in all of our programs. You've studied that, so that the bottom line is there's a differentiation. You stand heads above your competition when you follow these 5 steps, along with the others we mentioned about, pleasing personality and the ability to get along with people and identify with their needs. So at that point, I finished the presentation. I have a couple slides here about some of the programs that I've developed and have available: carpet and floor care and bidding and marketing manual here. And then we also have a cleaning manager's dashboard, 40 spreadsheets to help run your whole business. So we have quite a selection of programs that will help cleaning contractors. And then we'll be asking, back to you on your how you can help out. So this time, if you like, we can answer some Q&A here. And let's see if we can get this back to stop sharing.
There we go.
And here we are again.
There we go. Yeah, so I'm just going to toggle back to here. So I'm going to come back here, Gary. So I've got, just while we're on the subject, as you segued into, you kind of swept on the screen there, and we just talked about the differentiation. I feel it's probably a good segue into kind of what SWEP does in that capacity. And so, as Gary said, having an accurate price is absolutely essential, not only to win the contract, but to be profitable. All of the things that he talked about in terms of appearance and demeanor are obviously important as well. As it relates to our experience, when you're outbidding a contract, a lot of times you're in there to try and fix the ailment created by your competitor, who has probably dropped the ball, not delivered the service as they promised over a longer period of time. And for most of your customers, they're getting 3-4 quotes from you and others. And the challenge that they face is discerning who among you is best to deliver on the promises that you're making. And so what our tool allows our clients to do in that process is pull open a mobile application that allows them to show the customer, listen, here are the cleaning instructions that my team are going to follow every time. Here's the way they check into your location. I get notified if they're not on site. A number of different ways that they make it a tactile experience to actually give to the customer right when they're doing their walkthrough, to offer a proof point that not only are they, as Gary alluded to, do you have systems and operations processes within the company, but you can actually prove it to them, which is significantly different and more advantageous than most people who just go in and say, listen, we've got the best team, we focus on quality, we don't cut corners, we clean them. Those are very loose statements that I find the industry kind of holds on to, because there isn't really a way to prove it. So we believe we've found a way to help prove it to your clients.
If I could jump in on one thing, sorry, and that is that some companies that have bidding programs and so forth, they just teach, well, you email it to the customer, your proposal, and somehow your phone is going to magically ring. But as we know in the business, that doesn't always happen. So you mentioned that while you were doing the building survey, you would find these discrepancies and problems, and you start talking about them, because sometimes you try to set an appointment to share your proposal with the prospect, but maybe they're on vacation or out of town or busy, or maybe they really resist having you as viewed as a salesperson coming in to make a presentation. So by building all of the qualifiers during your building survey, what you're doing is you're actually selling on your very first meeting. You're selling yourself, you're selling quality. And nowadays that's critical. I mean, especially the quality capability to deliver that. So you sales points that you can, assuming that maybe you won't be able to get a face-to-face meeting, but on the other hand, stressing that when you come back in a couple days, you're going to fine tune a proposal so that it's matched to all of their cleaning needs, number one. And also you have some options that you could throw in. So you're trying to open up a platform to suggest that if we sit down and talk just 5-10 minutes, and it'll probably take a little longer than that, but just a few minutes to discuss what you can offer, then they'll have a clearer view of the proposal. But the face-to-face in there to bond and strengthen your relationship. People don't buy proposals, people buy from other people, and they want to know, what kind of person you are, what your priorities are, and will you deliver what you're promising, and is there a lot of hype, built into your proposal. So I encourage that one-on-one meeting a second time to deliver your proposal, answer any questions, and stress that as well. So I just wanted to add that to it.
That's perfect, Gary. So what I'm going to do, I think we've got 5, maybe 6 questions here from a couple of different people. So why don't we try and do these rapid fire? Because I know that you could go deeper into a bunch of these, and we'll certainly give you address these in an email format. Certainly you can. But in the interest of trying to at least get a little bit of an answer for the 5 or 6 folks that are here, let's try and kind of drill into these as quick as we can. So the first one here is, Gary, do you have a target production rate for all of your accounts, or just a general rule of thumb you could advise on?
Well, when you'll find that looking at production rates, you might be as low as 2,000 square feet per hour for, say, small once a week clean, because it's very detailed. You may have to do more wall washing, more work in the restrooms, and so forth. So we see that on the low end, and kind of an average of once a week small accounts at 2,000 square feet per hour. Then often you have to add some travel time, and you have to have a minimum trip charge. So don't forget that. If it only takes 40 minutes to clean, you can't pay someone $8 to go clean that. You're going to have to pay them well to have the account service. Then when you get into 5-day a week, a lot of times you're 2,800 square feet all, and daycares maybe down to 26, and then factories you might be up to 3,000. On light office buildings you might be up to 3,500. Then on the high end, you'd go to 4,000 and 5,000, certainly, and add in maybe a couple of partial cleans. So you're going to have that range. Generally, as a rule of thumb, between 2,000 and 5,000. You'll have a few exceptions on either end. So that's kind of a starting point. But the key thing is for you to track the production rate in your accounts and how long it takes, and have you built in all the efficiencies that you can think of to improve your cleaning rate. Okay,
great. So we've got a question here from Wes. Wes, this one's probably a little bit longer. I'll get Gary to address it in an email to you directly. But Gary, one of the questions Wes asked was an example of the 8-point system you referred to. So we'll kind of park that one for the time being. We'll get to that one after the fact. Fred asked here, what is the cleaning price per square foot? Any advice on square foot pricing?
Well, we show the price per square foot, but it's based upon your production rate. So when you analyze the 7 variables and come up with a production rate specific for that building, then our program automatically divides the production rate into the net cleanable and tells you how many hours a night it's going to take to clean that specific building. The problem with square footage is if the specs are different between 2 buildings that are the same size, then the square footage doesn't have near the significance to give you the answers that you need. And certainly if a building is not cleaned 5 days a week, then the square footage is not as critical. But especially your cost of living in your city. So we have a link, and when you click on it, it shows the quarterly update of the current janitorial labor rate for every city. So in that case, by using that as your base and using all of your expenses as a percent of labor, then the cost of living is automatically adjusted for your city. So you might find price of labor in the Midwest, people are going on $9 an hour, but in Chicago, they're going on $15 an hour. So it varies, by region and city. And so don't get too hung up on that until you get up to, like, say, 250,000, 500,000, 1 million, 2 million square feet. And then the property manager always wants to drill down on price per square foot, so you have to be aware of it. So it's better to track it after the fact, or look at it after your bid's prepared to see where it's at. And if it looks to be in the ballpark, it might be 14 cents a square foot on a medium size, might be 18 on a small one, might be down to 12 or below, on a large building. So don't use that as your prime predictor. Let your production rate do the talking for you.
Okay, so I've got another one here. So Omar asked, I'm gonna offer a couple of things in here, Omar, for yours. What would be the best form of marketing for larger buildings? I'm having trouble gaining access, so I can pitch. So a couple of things, Omar, and I'm gonna let Gary take a run at this as well. Obviously, a larger building, they're probably a more sophisticated buyer. If it's one big building, it's not like dealing with the office manager for a dentist clinic. There's going to be a lot more work in acquiring that account. I'd encourage you on our website to take a look at a couple of things. There's a free resources section with a lot of blog content, and I'm assuming a lot of it's going to be similar to Gary's in terms of some of the stuff he produces, but we've got a lot of material there. There's a 21-day sales challenge, and as you guys have probably seen come up on your website, we allow you to use our software for 3 locations that you service for free. So you can get in and make use of the software that we provide, learn how to use it to sell, and then go and acquire that customer through that utility. And certainly for anyone who's curious about the platform, it's a mobile application that, again, allows you to manage and support your cleaners. They use it as well as you. And if you're interested, you can get a free account. Our team will obviously help you get it set up. And we can offer you product demonstrations to show you what it does. But coming back to the question, Gary, Omar's trying to get into larger buildings. Any quick hits there you can think of for him?
Well, they are challenged because they like to screen out cold calls and phone calls and saying we already have someone that provides that. And your answer is, oh, great, I'm glad you have someone. And so I'm not calling today to try to sell you anything. But I wanted to offer a backup bid so that if something happens, you need to make a quick change, the company lets you down, we'd have our bid on file with you so that you know us, you've already qualified us, and we can be your go-to guy, so to speak. So that's kind of the approach you take. But getting in the door can be a challenge. And of course, hopefully you have good references. By the time you tackle larger buildings, you're going to need, probably 3 letters of recommendation from other accounts and even accounts they can call. And sometimes, one time I had a building, I landed, it was about 100,000 square feet. They wanted to come visit a current building that I was cleaning. So, of course, the night before, where I was. I was down at that other building, touching things up. We walk in, and one of the first things the guy does, he walks over to a windowsill and wipes his finger on it and looks at it. It's a windowsill that I just touched up the night before. So sometimes I want to look at a building. So bigger buildings are something to wait on until you have all of your systems up and running and you're doing real well. But one key is property management people often go on referrals and things that they learn out at BOMA meetings and different meetings they attend. And that's a place to go and try to get in the door. Another way I've done it is when I was real strong in carpet care, I connected with a floor and carpet installation company, worked a lot of miracles for them so that they would get calls. Person would say, we're not happy with the carpet, it's not holding up. Well, that's not the problem. You need to call Gary. He'll make it look like new. And so that kind of word of mouth can get you into property management firms as well. Well, that kind of wraps it up for today. We will answer those questions. If you have more, keep sending them in. We'll be glad to help you out. And thanks a lot to Swept and Toby for being a great host. And if there's nothing else, then that'll wrap up this session.
Well, thanks again, Gary. Everyone, we appreciate your time. You'll get a broadcast recording of this. And on behalf of Gary and myself, thank you so much for your attendance. We look forward to speaking with you again in the future. Have a wonderful day.
Take care.